Welcome back to the Meeple Marathon. Today we're going to be taking a look at Hadrian's Wall. So this is a game by Garphill Games. It was developed by Shem Phillips, but actually designed by Bobby Hill. And this is in the same line as Raiders of Scythia. So this is not a new game, but this is one of the games that I have picked up since seeing a lot of other people's lists of their top games of 2021, and Hadrian's Wall was at a lot of them, especially for solo play. So this is a game that I picked up based on basically everyone else's recommendations, and it has thus far not disappointed. And what I wanted to do in today's video is basically just go over the basics of how to play. So if nothing else, if watching this video helps you go into the rule book a little easier, or even sit down, especially maybe with somebody else who can help give you some guidance and get through your first game, where then I feel like after you've played your first game, you really even have that much of a better understanding of what this game involves and can then be successful from there on out. So let's set this off to the side and briefly talk about, well, first of all, Hadrian's Wall, for those of you who enjoy a little thematic nature in your games, was a wall built by one of the Roman emperors who had made it all the way up into Britain, and as a show of force against the Picts, essentially Braveheart over here, built a wall stretching all the way across the continent of northern Britain from one side to the other, completely like dissecting the continent. And then he manned that wall for many years against Pict invasions, and it was a way to separate them, keep them out of southern Britain, things like that. So Hadrian's Wall is essentially a flip and right game, roll and right game, where we are attempting to build up that wall and hold back the Pict invasion. So thematically, that's where the game centers around. So there's areas of the wall here. This left sheet is essentially the actual physical wall, the buildings of the wall, plus some additional other things you can build, like hotels and workshops and roads. This is all the buildings and stuff like that, which make up the wall. This down here is basically tracking your attributes. And then over here, this right side of the board are all the people that you are protecting behind the wall. So these are all the civilians that are populating the towns and major cities that you are then protecting with Hadrian's Wall, and then help support the wall. So a lot has to be done over here as well, because without their assistance, you're not going to have the resources and the people to man and build the wall. So thematically, that's how we're going to think of this. Now, the most important area of all of these, really, in my opinion, are the cohort sections. So a cohort is a Roman term for essentially a battalion. These are the armies that you are attempting to build up throughout the game that are going to go out and defend against the Pict invasions that will happen each year. The game is played over 6 years, or 6 rounds, which you can see along the top of this player board here. And at the end of the 6th year, then we're going to count up our points. So as the years go by, the Pict invasions get bigger and bigger, stronger and stronger. So you need to build up your cohorts here in order to fight them off. And it's important to note that your cohorts here are representative of like a left theater of war, a center theater of war, and a right theater of war, but they are not necessarily connected with this column here, this column here, and this column here. And I'll get back to what I'm talking about here in a minute. But there's a few basics here that I want you to understand, that I think if you can get this in your head, you will be very successful in reading this massive 2 sheets that we are going to start filling out here. And one is that almost all of these tracks need to be filled in from left to right. And you can see here that, for example, this is a better, how this is built out with this brown border here with a little kind of points to the end of it, which essentially means that you need to start here and then work your way across. Same thing with the civilian tracks. You need to work from left to right. Now there are some tracks here that you don't have to go in order, or that don't go from left to right. For example, like scouting goes top to bottom and things like that. But for the most part, most of these tracks you need to start on the left and fill them out sequentially from left to right. So filling in all those boxes. So I can't, if I'm filling out the performers section here, I can't just jump to the 9 and cross through it. So the other important thing to note is that a lot of, and especially here on this civilian side, a lot of areas have these flags. For example, this one has a 4 in it. This one has a 4 with a green banner in it. But all of these, when you see a number inside a tattered banner here, represents how far along this particular track you need to be in order to then take this action. So coming back up here to this example, we have to have gotten at least 4 spaces down the Praetor's track here in order to take this courthouse action. We also have to get to the 4 on the Praetors to even build the courthouse before we can then take rulings actions. So, and you can see here like the baths, to build the baths, there's a green 3 banner, matches up with this green 3. And so the important banners are highlighted here. See 1, 4, 7, 3, 6, 1, 4, 7, 3, 6. I know I went out of order there. Or like 1 and 3, 1 and 3, 3, 4, 6, 3, 4, 6, oh, and 9. So anytime you have to build something over here on the civilian track, you're looking at for the colored banner to match, and then anytime you want to take the actions, you have to make sure you have made it thus far along that particular track, and everything stays in line. So when you're looking at, say, this 4 right here, it needs to be this 4 right here. Or if you're way down here for this 6, you can't say, oh, I made it 6 on the trader track. No, it has to be the priest's track. So keeping all this in mind, I think will help you be very successful in basically understanding the core mechanics of how you go about filling things out on these 2 sheets. All right. So let's come over here, and the rule book goes basically left sheet, then right sheet, and top to bottom. And the rule book goes into a ton of detail in every single section, which I think is what scares some people off. The how many boxes there are to check off and all the things there are to do, and then the length of the rule book for such a small game can be rather intimidating. But let's go ahead and talk about how do we go about filling out the cohorts. Well, it's pretty simple. We're looking for this symbol here. It looks like a red shield with the yellow symbol on it. So anytime we cross through a box with that symbol on it, we can then come up here and choose any cohort, right, left, or center, and put an X through it. The more X's we have, the stronger our cohort is, and the more ability we have to defend off the picks. And as you can see, these boxes each have a symbol in it. So essentially, as you're going through, every time you cross through a box that has a symbol in it, you, if you need to, can check the back of the rule book here with this nice symbol guide, but they're pretty straightforward. These are obviously meeples, so you're going to get a yellow meeple. Here in this case, you're going to get a black meeple. Here you're going to get a purple meeple. But these up here are attributes, which you're going to find down here. So as you get to this one and you check this one off, you're going to get a discipline. So you check this off, you get to come in here and check this off, and it may be the third one, and you're going to get a labor worker. So you can see how this game really is all about combos. You're going to start with a certain number of meeples and resources, and you then get to decide what's the first box you're going to check off by spending that resource or that meeple, but that's going to lead you to gaining another meeple or another resource, and your turns just kind of snowball. And I think that's the biggest draw for this game, is how you can just continue to roll your turns longer than you might expect if you can make the right combos and check off the right boxes. So cohort, very important, looking for this symbol. All right, then all the rest of these tracks here are very important for helping, again, support your cohort build up your defense, but it's important to note that there are 3 specific columns. Now, they're not connected to the cohorts. There's the left cohort, the center cohort, and the right cohort, but they're not connected to these columns. In order to start checking off boxes in this left column here, we have built the small granary. You actually get to start the game with the small granary. Check. So all of these boxes in this left column here are fair game. In order to start checking off boxes in the central column here, we need to build the medium granary and the large granary for all of these. Also, for these particular ones that you can see have a chain connecting them. So in order to build this level of the sippy here, which is going to give you a check off in your cohort, you need to have built this far up in your fort. Okay? And all of these you need to start from the left and work your way across. So you can't just first thing go check off this one, which is going to give you a resource and your resource production. You have to check off this one first, then this one. Just like here in the fort, you have to check off 1, then 2, then 3, or no, 2. This is the third one. This is technically the fourth one, but this gives you the third mark because that's important. And work your way across. So you have to build up your fort in order to build up your wall, in order to build up your sippy. Your wall guard and your mining and foresting, you just have to have built the granary. So personally, I think this is a little backwards. I feel like they probably built the wall first and then built the forts behind them and then the sippy in front of them. But alas, they're essentially saying the forts were built first and then from there they were able to construct the wall and the sippy. And as long as they had the granary around, they could send the guard, feed the guard, and send the servants out to mine and forest. All right, these banners are important because as you reach these, it unlocks the ability to take these actions down here. So similar to the civilian track, hitting these banners is going to equal these banners, and you can see the colors match up, so we're good. All right. So keeping those 2 rules in mind, everything else should be pretty straightforward. Here, you're gaining meeples. Here, you're gaining attributes, which match down here. Here, you're gaining abilities to check off your cohort. And then this, the one that looks like a stone is going to give you an actual physical resource, which is similar to a meeple. It's something you're going to need to spend in this game. You're going to see it a lot over here to build buildings and such, and to build like the sippy and the wall. Basically, every time you have a stone in hand and you spend it, put it back in the supply, you can check off one of these sippy or one of these wall boxes. This hammer, however, though, all you do is come down here and fill in this circle, and then at the beginning of every year or round, you're going to get additional resources in hand based on how many circles you filled in. So not only by checking off this box do you gain an instant resource, but you're also building your resource engine for future rounds. Same thing down here with like the hotels and the workshops. You are essentially giving yourself a bonus of a civilian in hand at the beginning of each round, or 2 if you build both the hotels. Here you're giving yourself a bonus of a laborer in hand at the beginning of each round, or 2 if you build both workshops. Here you can check off any 1 attribute at the beginning of each round, or 2, pick 2 if you have built both roads. And then last but not least, these landmarks, which give you big bonus attribute checkoffs, and sometimes are things that you're doing end of game scoring for. You have to get to, you can see how the, what's the archway symbol with the banner background, you're looking for this. So to build the monolith, you had to have reached level 15 on the piety track. All right, so we've met that. Then we spend a labor, 2 resources, and we get to check off 2 on the discipline track. All right. That is pretty much this left side. All right. Now let's go over here to the right side. Again, you are starting, you're basically, these are your civilian tracks, but how are they helping you? What jobs are they gonna have? Are they traders, performers, priests, praetors, or patricians? And so you're going to assign a civilian to any one of these tracks, and you can slowly start ticking off. And as you make it up these banners, you can start building these buildings, And then once you've built the buildings, you can start taking the actions underneath, as long as you have met the criteria of making it across to reach the flag that's necessary. That's pretty much it. Again, there's a lot of symbols on here, but there's really only 2 sections on, we'll say 3, that are not just super straightforward. So let's talk about those now. Actually, each one probably has a section that's not super straightforward. So, all right, let's start with the traders. I think everything else is pretty straightforward except for the market here. What are you attempting to do in the market? Well, you'll notice that on some of your cards here that are going to be flipped over, you're going to see goods like so. And even on the fate cards here, there's a good with a number. Now what's important is this number. So here's a 5, here's a 4, here's a 3. What we are attempting to do is, as we reach certain levels on our trader track, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 8, 9, we can spend a resource to purchase a good, a materials, but we're looking for unique numbers to write into these boxes here. So if this was my card, I could say, all right, I'm going to spend a resource, I'm going to get a 5, and I'm going to write a 5. Then basically I'm not wanting to see another 5 come up. If I do, I can't purchase that good. It's not really doing me anything. For every unique good I put up, and you see the symbol is not equal to, I get a renown check off down here for each one. But then once I get up into my 4th and 5th unique good number, I'm getting 2 renown per material. And if I can do 6 goods, all unique numbers, I get 3 renown for that 6th good. Okay? If you happen to, now this is really the only time that this game has any interaction with the players around you. You can play up to 4 players, but actually no, you can play up to 6 players, sorry. You can purchase the good off of another player's, either to your left or to your right, but if you do, you're going to have to give them the resource that you spent, which they can then immediately use. Or you can say, I'm going to take a chance, and you flip over the top fate card, and you're stuck with whatever number this is. Okay? So that's the market. Now let's get over here down to performers. This should all be straightforward. And again, some of these, for example, the theater says you can only have a max 1 performance per year. So that's what this hashtag symbol is for, because you write the year that you did this performance and you cannot repeat. So if I do one in year 1, I cannot do another one in year 1. I have to wait till year 2. But the gladiator ring is a little bit more complicated. So as you build up your gladiator's strength, you can only have 2 gladiators, a red and a blue. As you build up their strength, which means you're circling more and more boxes along this track, you can then choose to fight another gladiator. And if doing so, you would say, all right, you don't have to spend anything. You would simply say, all right, I'm going to go to battle. I'm going to test my gladiator's strength. And then you're going to flip over a fate card. So there's nothing on any of yours or your other players' cards we can look at. All you care about is the purple gladiator and this number. So hopefully your strength is higher. So say you've circled 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes here. That means you've spent either 4 civilians or 4 servants, or in combination you've reached level 6 on the performer civilian track, and your red gladiator has a strength of 4. You went up against a gladiator with a strength of 3. You need to then cross through 1, 2, 3, fill in 3 of these boxes. Your gladiator took 3 wounds, but he survived. Good. Then you can come down here. You were successful. You get 2 renown to check off on this track. If, however, you die at any point, that means you fill in all the circles and there's none left. There's no open circles left. You gain piety equal to what's in this column. But again, fighting this gladiator is a choice. It's not something you have to do. And you can only battle your gladiators once per year. Okay, so that's the gladiator ring. The temples are all very straightforward. Again, you have to build the temple, and then you're spending any type of worker to check this box. Then this one, gain piety. This one, and this one, gain piety. What you're seeing here, these symbols, the red card with the X, are the is your fate symbol. So, or favor symbol. Sorry about that. So this is the area in the rule book where favor is explained. You can see it's not very long because favor essentially just gives you the ability to ignore one picked card as it's coming in. Think of it as you are paying them off. So don't raid my wall. Here's some gold. Go away. But for every favor that you unlock, you circle it, but then every favor that you spend to get rid of a picked card, you have to fill in, and that favor is no longer available. Okay, then we're going to come down here to the proprietors here, and let's talk about the baths. You're going to see this thumb up icon here. This is, what is the thumb up icon? It is removed disdain. Is that what it's called? Yeah, I guess just remove disdain. So, if at any point you ever let Picts get through your cohort and they attack your wall, you're going to gain Disdain. That means you're going to have to come down here on this track and you're going to have to circle. This is similar to the Dinosaur Island and Dinosaur World, circling threat and then filling in with the dot with security. Anytime you let Disdain happen, which means the Picts get through your cohort, you're having to circle a number of circles equal to the amount of Disdain you took. But you can cancel that disdain out by coming to the baths, and for every thumb up that you gain, you can fill in a circle. Okay, open circles at the end of the game are going to be worth negative points, but as long as they're filled in, they don't count towards counting up your negatives. All right, so that's your baths. Here again, you have to have built the baths by being at the level 3 of the proprietor's track. You spend these resources. You check off this box, means you're going to gain some renown. Then you can come back here, and as you work your way up this track, you can start spending a resource here to gain the fill in the disdain. And again, you can only do 2 bribes per year. So you would write, say, year 2, you could do it here, and you could do it here, but then you can't do it again. So the hashtag is to write in the number of the year you're doing it. All right. And then last but not least, let's talk about both the patricians things, because I feel like this is the most complicated civilian track in my opinion. So there's 2 areas. Your diplomats here. Again, as you reach level 1, you spend these resources, and then you can check off this box, which means you gain instant valor on the track, but you also gain 2 favor. The trick, however, is you have to pick a cohort that this favor is going to go towards. So as soon as you fill in this box, you have to declare this is going to go to the left cohort. You can only then use this favor if the Picts get through the left cohort. If they get through the center cohort, it's useless. And you can only have each, you see there's 3 rows, each one has to be a different cohort. So if this is the left and this one's the center, this bottom one has to be the right. And again, when you spend your resources to unlock this action, gain this valor, you gain these 2 favors, but as soon as you spend them, you cross through them and they're no longer available. The last thing you can do here is scout. So scouting, you have to spend a soldier resource, and you have to have made it, a certain way along the patrician's track. When you do, however, when you do scout, you are looking at this symbol here on your card or your neighbor's card. And what you're doing with this symbol is taking this shape and Xing through the boxes here to match the shape. Now this is not a very good example because the symbols are all the same, but here are some variety. So again, you could use your card that's face up for that round and mark through that shape. Again, only spending a soldier, and whatever resource you cross through, you get to get. So if you cross through this box, you gain a resource. If you cross through this box, you gain a servant. You're attempting to fill this whole thing out. That's going to give you max valor. Again, anytime you complete a row, you get to come over here and check out a valor. Also, sometimes endgame scoring can give you points for completed columns. But once you have X through, say, this 2x2 square right here, you cannot then bring in something like this and go 1, 2, 3. Oh, I don't need that fourth one. You have to be able to fit this shape in completely, mirroring it, flipping it, rotating it, but you have to be able to fit it completely without it hanging off the edge or overlapping a shape that's already fit in there. Now, similar to how we could use our player to our left and our player to our right's goods on the track here, we can also use their pattern. But if we use their pattern, we have to give the soldier we spent to them. Again, they can instantly use it, but then we can use their pattern to our heart's content. All right. So now that we have covered everything there is to basically cover on the sheet, let's talk about how we go about taking those actions. So the first thing you're going to do at the beginning of every round is you're going to flip over one of these fate cards, and we're only looking at the bottom here. This is going to give us the resources, everybody, if you're playing multiplayer, that you get for the beginning of the game, or beginning of that round. So everybody's going to get this exact count of meeples and resources. They're starting. Everybody's going to get the same starting foothold. Then what you're going to do is everybody's going to flip over 2 of their actual general cards here, and you're going to take a look at them. All right, so let's take a look at these a little closer here. First thing is, one of these we're going to choose to be end game scoring. So do we want to go for constructed landmarks, or do we want to go for completed cohorts? Should be pretty simple. The more cohorts that we fill out all the boxes for, more VP we score for fighter. Or the more landmarks we're able to cross through and build, the better we're going to do for architects. So how do we personally want to score points at the end of the game? We need to make a decision. Also, whatever card we don't choose, say we want to go with architects for our end game scoring, this resource right here is what we're going to gain right now at the beginning of the round. It's going to be added to these resources. Okay, so if we slate architects as endgame scoring, that means we're going to get an extra soldier. But say we know we really need resources this round, we may slate the fighter card to score endgame VP, and we're going to take the 2 resources here from the architect card. That means this architect card's never coming back. The fighter card is for endgame scoring. We have decided essentially we do not care about landmarks for this game. And everybody else is going to be flipping over 2 different cards. They have the same 12 cards you do, but since you shuffle up the deck beforehand, you don't know what 2 cards they're flipping over. But you're going to take one, you're going to slot it up here in year 1. This is to help you keep track of the rounds. You're going to take the other one and you'll just place it right up here so that you can view your materials for the market and your pattern for scouting if you need to. What's up here at the top is completely ignored. Just like over here, we slid it down so that we can't see the bottom stuff because all we care about is the top stuff. Okay? Then, essentially, the last thing you want to do is look on your player sheet here, mainly in this area, and you want to look to see, all right, how many additional resources do I get from my resource production track? And do I gain any extra civilians, any extra laborers, and anything from my roads? So you view right here. Once you have your specific pool of meeples and resources cubes, then you're ready to begin. And in a multiplayer game, you all can just start and go at your own pace, and you basically keep going until everybody has exhausted their meeple pool and don't have any more actions left to take. Otherwise, you're just sitting around waiting. So again, we have talked extensively about how you go about checking off boxes, but those boxes are going to earn you things which you can then spend on other things. And again, if you check off like this box with this civilian, go ahead and take your yellow meeple and set it off to the side. Or you could say, all right, I'm checking off this box and I'm immediately going over here and spending that meeple here. Either way, it doesn't matter. But that's an instant gain of a resource, and you're going to want to spend it because you don't carry anything over from round to round. If you have resources in your pool that are not spent at the end of the round, they're lost. They go back to the main supply. Now, how do we determine whether we are successful against the picks or not? That's where this board comes in. So this board is our time track. It's also keeping track of our endgame scoring conditions that we are deciding on as an individual player. But then it's also giving us some information here in these banners. So in year 1 here, you see 3 color banners, green, yellow, red. This is easy, medium, and hard difficulty. So in year 1 or round 1, if you're playing on easy, you're going to reveal 1 picked card. Then 2, 3, 4, 6, 8. If you're playing on hard, you're going to go 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 12. So again, you want to decide before the game begins which difficulty you're going to be playing on, and then you need to follow the color throughout the banners. So let's just say, for example, that we have made it a little further down and we are in our 3rd year. So we're going to flip over 3 cards. We're playing on easy. Whatever card you flipped over at the beginning to get your resources from, that goes into a discard pile. There's a whole stack of fate cards. You're just going to keep flipping no matter what you're using it for. In this instance, we're going to take 3. 1, 2, 3. We're going to flip them over. And the only thing we care about now is these symbols at the top, the arrows. In this instance, all 3 picked invasions are going to come right down the middle. So we're hoping that we have built up our center cohort. Okay, again, these could have been left, right, and center, and we would have only needed 1 checkbox each. In this instance, we were hoping to have gotten 1, 2, 3 check boxes in our center cohort. If we did, say for example, we have been very diligent and we built up our center cohort and we have exactly 3 check boxes, these essentially can be discarded, and we're going to then gain valor. Again, wall defense check marks equals valor, equal to this gray banner here. In this case, it would be 2. So we would gain 2 valor. Check, check. If, however, say we had not built up the center cohort at all, we were focusing on the left and the right, and all 3 of these made it through. We didn't block any of them. Boo on us. Well, the worst you can do is, again, 2. But for every picked invasion that you let through your cohort, that your cohort cannot stop, gains disdain. So we talked about this earlier. This is bad. This is negative points at the end of the game. So, but even though in this instance we let 3 go through, you can't do any worse than this number. You can't do any better than this number for valor. You can't do any worse than this number for disdain. So even though we had 3 misses, we still only take 2 disdain. Now, let's say we meet somewhere in the middle and we've got 1 check here in the center cohort, and they all 3 came down the middle. We're blocking 1 of them. So let's put 1 off to the side. That one's taken care of, right? 2 got through. Okay? So that's 2 disdain. Technically, we blocked 1, right? But we had 2 disdain. You do disdain first. You've reached your number here, which is 2, so you're going to take your 2 disdain. But now let's say we only, all of these are down the center, man. Okay, say this was our outcome of drawing 3 cards. This one was blocked. This one was blocked, but we let 1 get through. Okay, that means we're going to take 1 disdain, but there's still 1 more, right? We blocked 2, so we're going to gain that difference in valor. So in this instance, since we just let 1 get through, but there's 2 opportunities for gaining valor or disdain, you take disdain out first, 1 disdain, then whatever's left over, as long as you blocked them all, you can take in valor. That is probably the most confusing part of the rules, in my opinion, is keeping up with that balance, because this number does not equal the number of cards you're drawing. Like, for example, over here, you're drawing 8 cards, but you really only care whether or not you're able to block, or whether 4 or not are going to get through. Anything beyond 4, you really don't care about. That, ladies and gentlemen, is essentially a full round of Hadrian's Wall. You're going to go through 6 rounds, and at the end of the 6 rounds, you essentially count up your attribute tracks here. There's going to be VP scoring at the bottom, so however far you've made it down this track, you write that number here. Then you're going to go up to your path cards, which are these cards here, and you're going to determine, all right, I got 1 VP here, I got 2 here, that's 3. I didn't get anything for Forager. Maybe I got 3 here, so that's 6, 1 here, 7, and 2 here, 9. So then you would write 9 right here, and then you're going to count up how many Disdain unfilled circles, and you're going to look at which banner it's above here. So say you had 5 Disdain, that's going to be 9 points, and that's a negative. Then you add up all these, subtract that, and that's your final score. So that's it. Again, I feel like watching this video probably is quicker than reading the rulebook. But again, this is not an easy game. This is a very taunting game, but it can be very satisfying if you sit down and work your way through it. Now, there are a few differences in playing solo versus playing multiplayer. And unfortunately, the solo game is a beat your own score, or a can you reach this threshold score, which I consider a beat your own score mentality. There's not a specific AI who's also gaining points at the same time as you, and you just need to make sure you outpace them. You're really just competing against yourself. That being said, what you need to do, the only differences that you need to have for a solo game versus a multiplayer game is a dummy deck. All right. And what this dummy deck is going to provide for you is a player on your left and a player on your right, both coming from the same deck of cards. Now, if you're playing this game 2-player, you're also going to get out the dummy deck to create that third player to give you somebody, a different person on your left if the real person is on your right, vice versa. But what you're going to do is you're going to flip over this card. You're going to take your resources. You're going to flip over your 2 cards. You're going to make your choice between a path and which ones you gain resources for. So let's path that one and put that one there. Then you're going to flip over 2 of the dummy cards. What this does is give you an opportunity to have a merchant good to purchase at the market, that number, or a pattern that you can borrow for scouting. If, however, you use either one of these, you're putting the resource that you're spending onto the card. Normally, if this was a human player, they would get that resource. But since it's just a dummy player, it's just going to sit there, because at the end of the game, at the end of the round, you have to reveal an additional picked card for every resource that you have placed on a dummy card. So say I wanted to use this 4 and then use this pattern. All right, so I put my resource here and my soldier here. At the end of the game, if this was round 4 here, normally you are revealing 4 cards on easy mode. You would have to reveal 6 cards. So that's how they get around you giving your other player a bonus. They just make life more difficult on you. But that's it. That's the only difference for you in solo mode or 2-player mode versus playing 3 to 6 players. All right, so that's going to do it for this how to play video for Hadrian's Wall. In my next video, I'm going to do a solo playthrough so you guys can see how I go about, checking boxes, making my decisions, making my way through building up the wall, building up my cohorts. It's really not a very long game if you understand the symbols, and really analysis paralysis sets in, and that's what can make the game lengthy. If you're really struggling with how do I spend these last 2 meeples I have, what's the best combo I can come up with. But if you take the time, you can maybe come up with a way to turn 1 yellow meeple into like 4 or 5 more actions. So that's the beauty of this game in particular. So if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos, including the Hadrian's Wall solo playthrough, which will be coming up next, please consider subscribing to the channel. Once again, thanks for watching. Have a great day.